Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're going to get you a little bit more prepared for the NFL draft, AFC South style. And with this episode, I am bringing you a guy that knows any and everything about the draft, players, those players you might look over that you might not notice. This guy's going to know. That'd be Mr. Emory Hunt. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. As always, I appreciate you bringing me on the show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The pleasure is all mine. We're going to get into the draft, talk about a little bit of the free agency that we're going to do that and more on this episode. Of course, first things first, we have to do the get off your chest segment like I do with every episode. And this episode is sports conversation is the talk. Now, with sports conversations, they've always been interesting over the years. You got people get mad, people get, sad, whatever, over sports conversations. But they were always conversations. They weren't necessarily of, I got to down this person to make this person great. I got to do this to do that. I got to scream and yell. And if I don't get my way, I'm going to start calling you names because I don't have anything else to say. That's not a sports conversation. That's just you having a spaz attack or you losing your mind and thinking you can just talk to anybody old any kind of way. And that is not what we need to be doing. I mean, people, you got to understand, I know fan is short for fanatic. However, you can't just be fanatical on any of all different things that people don't agree with you on. No, you can't just do that because you might come across the wrong person. I'm not threatening anybody or saying anything. That's not what I'm saying here. All I'm saying is you might want to just move with a little bit more ease when you're on social media because technically you don't know who you're talking to. You potentially could be talking to somebody that could take some of this stuff literal and say, meet me here or do this or do that, or I'm going to come see you. They could be a technical whiz. They could mess around and find out where you are. So, take that with a grain of salt. Think about those things before you start getting out there, being an internet tough guy with some people that don't agree with you on some things in sports. You got anything you want to add, Emory?
No, I think you covered it all and hit the nail dead on the head, man. Just keep it about the topic. It's nothing personal. It's all opinion, subjective opinion. Some may have a little bit more research than others, but don't take it to a place that you're not ready to deal with because once you cross that line, it's hard to go back. So just keep it conversational. Even if you disagree with someone, keep it respectful. A lot of times you may find some points you agree with and some points you may disagree with and vice versa. As long as you keeping it about the topic at hand, the conversation, you're going to invite more people in and more people will be like, hey, man, I kind of like how this debate has gone back and forth because it brings it back to the essence of why we all love the sport.
Right, exactly. We do it for the love of the game. Well, some people do, but do it for the love of the game. But speaking of love of the game, good gosh, getting into the topics for today. You gotta love the love that Houston Texans are trying to show their fans with upgrading the talent that they added. I mean, you add Daniel Hunter, you replace Jonathan Grenard with Daniel Hunter. You bring in Stephon Diggs as your number 2 wide receiver or number 1, depending on how you want to look at it. You've got Joe Mixon. You bring him in at running back. You bring Stephon Diggs and Mixon in via trade, by the way. Azeez Al-Shire, you bring him in as your starting linebacker alongside Harris in there, Christian Harris. Then you bring in Danico Autry. I mean, you look at all these pieces. I mean, what can you say about the free agency of the Houston Texans?
They're trying to strike while the iron is hot. They had a great year last season, got to the postseason, and it's like, hey, we're not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to do a great job of adding proven talent to the roster so they attack free agency, and they're also keeping an eye on development by what they're going to do on the back end of the draft. And that's the important part. Like, hey, man, we can get known commodities with our early first-round picks, which is why you see Stephon Diggs, even though he was released or whatnot, traded or whatnot, so you see them going to get guys that have proven themselves while also keeping an eye on the future because you can play both hands, kind of like the Rams did when they were trading away first-round picks and then were able to nail the back end of the draft and undrafted free agents. Houston can do the same thing, which will keep them constantly competitive because you still have the young quarterback going into the second year. I think they got better at running back with Mixon. They've added more talent at receiver. That way you don't have to rush Tank Dell back from his injury. You kind of can slowly walk him back to health and not put him out there too early. And defensively, we saw what they did last year. Now they've added even more pieces, and they still have room to get better.
Right, right. And then of course, defensively, there's one piece I'm interested in your thoughts on Jeff Okuda. This is his third team. He's drafted by the Detroit Lions, very very high. Then got traded to the Falcons. Now he's just signed 1 year deal with the Houston Texans. I mean, what are your thoughts on him at this point? It's third team, highly talented player, just hasn't been able to kind of tap into that potential that he has.
Yeah, you kind of hope it works out for him. I know he had dealt with some injuries in Detroit, and then things kind of was up and down a little bit with the Falcons. And you hope this is the team that he can get it straightened out, because he's gone into a situation where this is going to be one of his, if not the last time, people will view him as a potential starter. Because if it doesn't go great here, he's going to be now viewed as a reserve. And if you still want to hold down a starting job, this is your last opportunity to do so. Very talented prospect coming out of Ohio State. Just, again, the things you can't account for, the injuries. How will someone quickly adapt to the NFL level? And I think that's what we've seen from Okuda. And you hope that he realizes that potential, because he is a very good player. But I know that has to be, screwing with his mind, the fact that, man, I was once great, but I keep having these bumps in the road. And this is the true testament of you as a player in terms of what you can overcome mentally to help you out there physically on the field.
Definitely, definitely. Now we're going to go to the next team that made a few splashes in the offseason. That would be the Tennessee Titans. Now, they went into stealth mode with their splashes, though. They didn't quite just pop out there. But, of course, they snuck in on the Calvin Ridley talk and got him away from Jacksonville. Then they traded for L'Jarius Sneed from the Kansas City Chiefs and got it in the way that they wanted it. So what can you just say about the pieces that they were able to add, and kind of an atypical way that usually the Titans would kind of operate when it comes to the offseason?
Well, you can say they got better at receiver and they got better at corner. And I feel like they also added some pieces. They bring in Pollard, who should pair well with Tyjae Spears. You lose Derrick Henry, you kind of hate to see him go. I like that they added some pieces along the offensive line. They still have a chance to nail a big piece right there in the draft, whether it's offensive line help or getting even better at pass rusher. I think there are some areas, quarterback is still the biggest question mark for them, in my opinion. You have Will Levis going to his second year. His first year outside of the first game he had was pretty much like how you see rookie quarterbacks struggle. And if he can get better, it kind of elevates what they have. If he doesn't, then it's going to kind of tank what this team has built so far this offseason.
Right, right. And then another guy I wanted to throw in there, Chidobe Awuzie. Yeah, I've worked on saying his name a few times. But, yeah, he definitely is a good addition as cornerback, too, on this team. But, like they said, they're going to be versatile and move around and things like that, which is going to be good ultimately for this defense. Now, another guy that they brought in is Lloyd Cushenberry. Now, they replaced Nate Davis with him. Completely an upgrade at the center spot, along with bringing in Sadiq Charles, and they brought in Leroy Jackson, I believe, from the Browns via trade. Do you think that is enough? Saying if they don't let's say they don't get Alt or any of the other tackles, let's say they go for a wide receiver. So with what they have currently, would you say that's a good enough upgrade, or do they need more?
I think they need more. One, you have to continue to build out your depth, but also you have room for a frontline starter at tackle. I like what they have in Skoronski. I like what they brought in Cushenberry. I like what they brought in elsewhere, but you still have room for more. That's why I think this is going to be a huge draft for them. They're in a perfect spot because you can get one of the top 5 tackles at where you are, because this is a very good tackle class at the top. And if they're continuing to build that offensive line, the run game will be better. We saw them add weapons at receiver. The play action pass will be better as a result of the successful run game. And that could help ease a lot of the pressure off of a Will Levis. And you should truly get a good gauge on what Will Levis is this year based off what you've built around him. I know people are, looking at, you kind of have a lot of the same guys in the backfield. Well, cool. That's fine. But at least you've built up the offensive line. Those guys should have success running the football. They've gotten better at receiver. Tight end is still tight end. Still got Chika Conquo out there as well. So for me, this is about setting up Will Levis to get a great look at what he can potentially be for this franchise, or if they have to go into 2025 and move forward at a different with a different player at that position.
Right, definitely. We're going to get a good look for sure at Will Levis this season. Going over to the next team, the Colts. The Colts team, they definitely were feeling the run it back theme because they signed literally everyone back that they wanted to bring back. That includes, of course, Michael Pittman Jr. Do you like their strategy and what they did in terms of just bringing everyone back to run it all back again? Even though I know, just to set the picture, they were one win away from making the playoffs. Do you kind of subscribe to this theory, or do you think they should have maybe added more?
Well, they still have room to add more with the draft, but I like that they were bringing back key cogs to the puzzle because continuity is king in the NFL. And as long as you're able to continue to build with the same guys that, hey, remember, this was a first-year coach last year, a head coach in Shane Steichen in his system. And now you got a lot of guys returning, second year in the system. The continuity is there. The consistency will be there. You're going to get back Anthony Richardson healthy, fully ready to go. And he only played 2 plays with Jonathan Taylor, who you didn't have in the beginning part of the season. So now you get a new part of the offense will be unveiled with those two on the field together for a full slate of games. So that now you just are a little bit different offensively, a little bit more explosive, which will help out your defense. And you still have the draft coming up where you can get better on that side of the ball.
Definitely. And of course, I don't want to leave out the Jags. Now, the Jags did lose Calvin Ridley. Now, we did mention that. However, they did add Gabriel Davis from the Buffalo Bills. And of course, they did add Eric Armstead defensively. That's a huge get for them in terms of helping to stop the run game. What do you think of just the losses, but also the gains of the Jacksonville Jaguars this offseason?
Well, the Jags are still very good on paper on both sides of the ball. They still have, a very good running back tandem. They still have a good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. They still are able to work vertically down the field with the addition of Gabe Davis and also what they've already had on the roster. You touched on it. Getting Eric Armstead was huge. Helps their defensive line, helps their defensive interior, which will free up things for Josh Allen. You saw them just re-up Josh Allen as well as a pass rusher. And again, this is a football team we thought going into the season will run it back and get back to the postseason based on how they ended the 2022 campaign. It didn't work out for them amidst everyone getting better in the AFC South, the Colts being one of them, and also the Texans. And now going into this offseason, you got to keep up because now you look at not only the AFC South, but you're fighting with the AFC North, who could potentially send all 4 of their teams to the postseason with the quarterback play that they have in that division, along with the roster. So this is going to be a very competitive AFC as a whole. So it's going to be up for the Jags to not only keep pace with Houston, but when you look around the rest of the AFC, they got to be ready to go.
Definitely. It's going to be interesting just to see what all happens. One guy I didn't mention was Mitch Morris. They did sign at center spot. I would say that's definitely an upgrade for them. He's either going to get that spot or he's going to put the center that's currently there at that spot. Well, I suspect he's going to start, but that's definitely an upgrade for them just because Jacksonville at the center spot, they weren't necessarily the most solid there. And of course, there's not, there's enough blame to go around on the offensive line. However, hey, the center is kind of the brains of the operation. So essentially you're going to catch a little bit more of the blame if it isn't the tackles. So, just my thoughts. But yeah, definitely we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to get into the draft talk. Definitely. And you're going to enjoy it for sure. On Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.
EDO Beard Butter and EDO Beard Wash are 2 of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, You can get 10% off on these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get this the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
Shout out to EBO Beard Butter. Definitely is a product that I use, and I definitely can say it definitely works. It works well. Of course, I'm going to throw that across the bottom of the screen if you're watching. Of course, 10% off everything but beard boxes with promo code MPAFC10. Now back to the show. Of course, before we left for commercial break, we talked about the draft. Now, for those who aren't aware, Emory, can you please tell them the level of expertise that you have in terms of breaking down draft prospects and the product that you have for draft?
Well, listen, I'm at all the different All-Star games, 9 to be exact. So traveling around to the different All-Star games, it allows me to then, once the fall football season is over, to dive into the film room and then put together the largest draft guide that's out there. So this year we have the 2024 Football Game Plan Draft Guide, which people can go order at footballgameplan.com/2024 draft guide. It's a full color PDF. Every one that's in the guide has an individual scouting report. So this year you're looking at over 900 individual scouting reports. And if you've been a loyal subscriber of the draft guide since 2020, since we put these out digitally, which you can also find on our website, right now you'd have over 4,300 individual scouting reports at your disposal, which helps you not only understand rosters in terms of who is on what roster around the NFL, and from the starting depth chart to the backups to the practice squad, but you also have a pretty good gauge on who's right now in the UFL, the CFL. So it's a pretty good get. Helps keep you abreast of what's going on around the league and helps you be a more informed fan.
Definitely. I know one guy that'll probably be in there next year. He's playing at Tennessee State University. That'd be Terrell Allen. He more than likely will be in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They always have some talent down there at Tennessee State.
Yes, sir. I thought he was actually coming out this year, but he's actually back. He came back for his super senior season. So he's here, and I know Monroe Beard actually was here, but he actually just hit the transfer portal. So he's actually looking for a new home. But that's another guy that'll probably pop up in your guide next year as well.
There's a bunch of UT Martin guys in there, so I know you like that.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I'll be checking that out for sure. But kind of getting back to the draft, of course, we kind of these teams have made moves in free agency, but you still have to round it out with the draft picks. You can't just put all of it into money. You got to put it into pieces that you can build and grow. And that's where the Texans are kind of at right now. They need other pieces to kind of build and grow, and cheaper pieces as well. So even with all they've added, what are some of the roles you think they kind of need to still fill when it comes to the draft?
Well, what happens now when you're looking at teams' depth chart going into a draft, you fill out the roster, you kind of figure out where are some of the potential vulnerable spots for them. For Houston, I feel like they could still use another defensive tackle. Whoever's there, highest guy on their board, they could truly go best player available. But I feel like defensive tackle is one spot they can attack. Maybe you add a young running back, that you can kind of groom, develop, and go from there. Receiver, still want to add some talent there. Even in the secondary, I just want to get younger, because now what they've done via free agency, you've opened up some spots potentially for special teams help. So now you can really go in as best player available, who can help us right away. Or if you feel as though we don't have enough spots to fill, you could package picks up, move up to target a few guys that you have specifically, highlighted or spotlighted as, hey, these guys can help us out right now. Let's package some of these picks up and go up and get him, or we could punt to next season where we may have a little bit more room.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. One guy I would suspect they're going to take a look at is Mr. Sweat from. I would say they would probably take. I would say they'd probably take a look at the guy from Texas, Mr. Lavondre Sweat. So yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting just to see. Are there any other prospects, maybe potentially, that you could think of when it comes to the Texans that may fit what they like?
Listen, I mean, you're talking to someone that has scouted over
I
900 guys,
know.
right? So, like specific targets would be because here's the thing I always say when people ask that question: it's a good question, but the problem is you never know how the draft will shake out, so it's hard to really peg. Hey, they have to look at this guy or this guy because that guy you mentioned may be gone. Only way that works is in the top 5 because that's where you kind of you have your cues of when everybody's going to be there, right? For the most part. So it's not an evasive answer. It's just the fact that it's very hard to pinpoint, targets when guys may not even be there, especially for the Houston Texans who don't even pick on day one. So it's even tougher for them because now you're sitting back and like, okay, well, who can we target? We don't really, we can't target anybody. So that's always a tougher question for me to ask, at least.
Got you. Totally understand. Now, as far as the Titans, the place I see them kind of still having a hole, you may, the defensive line, adding some depth there. Still offensive line, of course, you always want to add some depth there. But another place would be linebacker. I could definitely see them potentially adding a linebacker as well. The linebacker out of North Carolina State comes to mind as well if he does fall to them. I don't see him going in the first round to the Titans if that happens. But are there any other holes that you can think of that I may be missing when it comes to the Titans in terms of the draft?
And the linebacker you're talking about is Peyton Wilson, and he's a phenomenal player. He can play all 3 linebacker spots, just tremendous athleticism, talent. You just hope he can stay healthy. That's going to be the biggest knock on him. He's been banged up a lot over the course of his career, but when he's out there, phenomenal. We kind of alluded to it earlier, offensive line. I feel like one of the tackles will be there for the Titans picking, whether it's Joe Alt, whether it's Troy Fatanu, whether you like Olufa Fashanu out of Penn State, there's going to be a tackle there. I feel like tackle is the one place where they can really attack and get better. You touched on linebacker. Even if they go in the later round, someone like Jamal Hill out of Oregon would be an ideal spot. Athletic, he's explosive out of Oregon. 5'11", about 220, played safety up until this past season where he played linebacker for the full year. So he has some upside. Someone on day 3 to keep an eye on. But man, I would love that Peyton Wilson fit that you brought up. Hopefully he's still around when the Titans pick, outside of round 1, because that he would be a perfect fit for what they need.
Got you. Now, as far as going on to the Colts, like I mentioned, they re-upped everyone, but I still see them needing some more talent at the wide receiver position and maybe more pieces at the cornerback position and maybe safety, perhaps. Are those kind of some spots that you kind of looked at or can kind of locate with the Colts, or did you see something else that I may be missing?
Well, you touched on offensive pieces, right, and weapons. That could even include tight end. That's why you're starting to see a lot of people talk about Brock Bowers potentially being right there for Indy. But I'm with you. Wide receiver, another one would be nice. Someone that's a little bit more consistent than Alec Pierce. I like the fact that Josh Allen's got better toward the back end of the season. You bring back Michael Pittman. I think they need another playmaker out there to help continue to bolster the talent around Anthony Richardson. And cornerback, which is fascinating because we saw them last year double up in the draft with a guy I really like in Darius Rush. But they released him. He had a really good preseason, had a pick 6 in the preseason against Buffalo. They still released him. He got snatched up quickly by Pittsburgh. So, yeah, that could be another spot where you see the potential for a pick there. Even someone, maybe a pass rusher. I feel like they always need someone that can be a down and down out threat as a pass rusher. And so they have some options to keep an eye on. But I'm with you right there with wide receiver and potentially corner. being some of their key spots.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing I looked at with their pass rushing, which you mentioned, they had it. They did it by committee last year, but they just don't have that one guy and be like, okay, cool, you're the guy. We know you're going to be the number one guy. You can take attention away from other guys and make them better, and you can also still do your thing. They don't have that one guy. I think they were hoping maybe Kwity Paye would be that guy, but he's getting to year 4, year 5 now, and he's still trying to get himself there. So to me,
Right.
I'm not sure he's the guy anymore at that point. I'm not for sure. But hey, we'll see what happens when it comes to the Colts. They may think he is and do all these different things and sign him and re-sign him and think he's going to grow. But that's just my thoughts just in watching him. When he came out of Michigan, I was kind of indifferent on him because I was like, well, there's still some inconsistencies here. Whether he plays well one moment and then the other moment you're like, okay, where is he? So that's just my thoughts there on him. I mean, do you have any other thoughts on him and Kwity Paye?
Nah, listen, I wasn't as high on him coming out. Good twitch. When he played, I always thought the other guy was better. And the other guy in that situation happened to be Aiden Hutchinson, who I thought just consistently balled out. Or, there was always the other player that I felt like had a little bit more juice off the edge. Paye is a good player, but you kind of wanted, where they drafted him, they wanted him to be a dominant player. He would be good in rotation, but you kind of drafted him to be the down in, down out guy, and that's not where his strengths lie.
Right, exactly. And for the Jags, of course, they do have some issues still. You have to think about offensive line some, because you're talking about Walker Little. You got Anton Harrison on one side, you got Walker Little, you got Cam Robinson in there. I still, even though they did sign Cam Robinson back, I still think they're kind of iffy on him. That's just I guess what I just view it as being, but I could be wrong. But of course they do need to think about the inside linebacker spot because they signed Oluokun back, and that kind of is like a statement in itself when you have Lloyd and you have Chad Muma inside, and then of course the cornerback spot, they definitely need some help there. Let me ask you while I'm thinking about it. What did you think of them re-signing Oluokun back, despite they had Muma and Lloyd they drafted in the same draft to potentially take over?
Well, it shows you how much they value that position, because I think all three backers are really good, like athletic. They can run and chase sideline to sideline guys. Obviously, different pairings for pass coverage, but you love the athleticism and you love the eagerness. I like that they kept the backers kind of intact. And so that's why I feel like cornerback is or defensive back, someone that can kind of give you a little bit of both, safety and corner, would be a good fit for them. Someone that can kind of be a versatile matchup piece on game day would be an ideal watch for them, because again, linebacker, people sleep on. It's a very important position. It's that green dot player, the guy that gets everyone lined up, ready to go. And the fact that they were able to bring him back and keep the other two guys, the young guys, ready, maybe some guys are not ready to step in to a leadership role yet, to kind of force their hand. But when you got all three, you're definitely working with something well at the second level.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't mention the green dot. I'm glad you mentioned it. The Titans don't have anybody really to wear the green dot right now, because Azeez Al-Shire did it, and Murray is not one they've been mentioning. Rand Carthon talked about that and talked about, hey, he's been in some places where safeties wore it, or this person's wore it. And I was like, wow. And he's talked about with Curtis Lofton and Keith Brooking as well. So there's a lot of different talk about that. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of solve that situation as well. But yeah, it's going to be interesting just the Jaguars in general. I actually talked to someone from the Jaguars recently, Demetrius Harvey. I talked to him, and he actually was telling me that Savage, I thought they were bringing him in to play safety. No, they're bringing him in to actually play nickel, which I thought was quite interesting, that he's not going to play safety as much, but he's going to be their starting nickel with the ones. And I was like, okay, but honestly, we'll see what happens. But do I think he ends up playing some safety this year? Yes. I don't think he'll be exclusively a nickel. That just threw me completely off. Did you expect to hear that when Doug Peterson and the Jaguars said that he was going to be playing mainly nickel?
Well, there's a lot of crossover, And so, like, when I break down the safety position, I break it down into 3 spots: free safety, strong safety, combo safety. Combo safety and nickel corner are kind of one and the same. The reason why I can understand them putting Savage there, because a lot different than a nickel corner, you feel like you're a little bit more stout versus a run with a safety playing inside. Because let's say if you have a nickel corner there, teams feel like, okay, we can still kind of run at him. You know, it's still a cornerback, not really knowing how aggressive he will or won't be in a run game. But you know, a safety by nature is going to be a little bit more assertive in that regard. And if he's athletic enough to run with bigger wide receivers and tight ends, like, you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, which is why that combo safety position is kind of critical, because them and slot defenders are sort of similar players from assignment perspective. Yeah, you may get a more athletic slot corner, but sometimes the slot safety can also be as athletic, but gives you a little bit more from a run defense perspective. So Savage, to me, would fit that role perfectly.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it just was surprised me when I first heard that. And I was like, oh, okay, paid him a lot of money to be a nickel. But, I would, I definitely would expect them to kind of use him a little bit more. I definitely want to get, some thoughts, maybe, I guess, quick thoughts on Marvin Harrison, perhaps, going into this draft, kind of overall draft. And, he didn't work out, didn't do any of those workouts. But, do you think his stock has just changed any at all, or is he still going to be the guy at wide receiver, in your opinion?
I still think he'll be the guy. A colleague of mine at CBS, Ryan Wilson, brought up a great point, because he was at CJ Stroud's pro day, and Harrison was there working out. So if you're Harrison, you're like, man, I did a pro day already. Like, y'all witnessed it last year when y'all went and checked out CJ Stroud. Like, well, I'm going to do this again. Put the tape on. So I from that perspective, I like, you know what? It makes sense. And at the end of the day, he's giving his body some rest, because we know the rookies tend to hit the wall like at some point in the season, because they're coming off, especially the ones that come from these Power 5 programs that have played a lot of games, like in Ohio State. You're coming off a long season, and then you have the All-Star game circuit. Then you have the combine and 30 visit circuit. So you constantly on the go. So and this is the benefit of having that pro father in Marvin Harrison, to where it's like, hey man, like, give your body a chance to rest, recoup. We're only going to do certain things. So therefore, there's no rookie wall, and you can play all 17 games and play them at the highest level. So sitting back and zooming out a bit, it kind of makes sense.
Okay. All right. And what are your thoughts on Drake May? I mean, I've kind of, in thinking of Drake May, I think about previous quarterbacks from North Carolina. That would be Mitch Trubisky and Sam Howell, and kind of how they transitioned and kind of how it didn't quite work out the way everyone thought it would. And in Drake May, I'm trying not to put him in that box, but in my mind, I'm trying. I can't get him out of that box. Am I wrong for having him in that same box with those 2 players, or do you have some reservations about him as well?
That's why I compared him to Justin Herbert. You'll watch a Herbert game, and you'll see, okay, he can make these throws, he can do this, he's athletic, he has a strong arm. But after the game, you kind of still feel like there's something missing. And that's how I felt with Drake May. The good part for Drake May is he is young, so he still has room to grow. But you want to see him finish a game like he starts a game, which is a lot of what we are hearing and saying about Justin Herbert. He has led the 4th quarter in interceptions since he got into the league in 2020. That's not a good statistic you want to be atop of. So there's clear talent with Drake May, but you want to see it for 4 quarters, as opposed to in the first quarter or sporadically throughout the game. Consistency is going to be key for him, because he does have all the athletic traits.
Definitely. And, Caleb Williams, of course, plenty of people have criticized or spoke him up or wrote think pieces all across all social media about him and crying, or he paints his fingernails or something. And I'm just like, look, the man can play. But what are just your thoughts about his fit in Chicago in general, and just kind of some of the noise around him going into this draft?
People are too online. Like you can't be too online and fight all these battles and fight every battle. Just if you stay in your lane, you get to your destination faster, and you just keep the focus on the main thing. And if it's just about ball, then you'll see that this guy clearly has a talent, right? And you'll like that Chicago kind of understands. Even though I wish they would have kept Justin Fields and continue to build with him, because you want to see someone finish what they've started. But at least Caleb Williams is going into a situation where they've gotten better at receiver. They've gotten better at running back. They've added some pieces on defense. They should be a better team for him to step in and be his 111, right? Do his part, and the team as a whole should be better. So Chicago should contend for the division this year, even with the rookie quarterback, because they're better all the way around him. So now he doesn't have that much pressure to go in and say, I got to be the savior. I can go in and do what I'm supposed to do, play well, and that's going to take care of itself. You have created essentially a San Francisco 49ers situation where you don't need your quarterback to be the game breaker. You would like him to be one, but if he just does his part, does his job, then you should win a lot of football games, and I think they will.
Right. It's definitely going to be interesting to watch. And I know Chicago Bears fans are definitely, wanting and needing a winner after some of the lean years they have had, the last few years. We just leave it at that. But as far as do you have anyone that you think is kind of rising up draft boards right now that you can think about that are out there?
Well, I wouldn't say rising on draft boards, but I'm starting to, as you get closer to the draft, I'm excited that people are starting to pay more attention to a lot of these smaller school guys. This time last year I was talking up Colton Dowell of UT Martin all throughout the process, and he ends up getting drafted by the Titans in the 7th round. This year, you look at the receiver position, Kyle Sheets of Slippery Rock, Cole Burgess of Cortland, Division III program, and you also look at John Giles of West Florida. So this is another good class of small college receivers that I've been a big fan of, and I'm glad people are starting to become a little bit more adept to looking at places outside of the Power 5 and realize there's a lot of good football to be played.
Definitely. Any players that you're looking at that people are kind of cooling off of right now going into draft? We're not that far away from it coming up.
Well, listen, I'm not as online as a lot of people, so I don't know who is talking about what. Like, I listen. I stay in my little box. I watch my film, and I keep it moving, man. Like, you saw all that conversation going around the women's college basketball tournament, so that's why I just keep it. Football, UFL. I'm excited about the European League of Football coming up this spring. I'm excited about the CFL coming up. And so I am strictly football, man. Like, and I keep it about the 120 between 53 and the third, and mind my business.
There we go. Best way to be, right?
Moisturize and mind your business. You'll be good to go.
There you go. Now, of course, we reached the end of the show, but we do have a game like always. I got 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. Are you ready?
Yes, go.
All right, we got 2 Eddie Murphy movies. We got Beverly Hills Cop or Trading Places. Which movie are you taking?
Trading Places.
Trading Places. Yeah, that movie was quite masterful, especially towards the end. Analysis or scouting? Which one do you enjoy more?
They're one and the same. You can't separate one without the other.
Okay. All right. Good answer. Okay, cool. Which Lil Wayne song would you take? Fireman or Go DJ?
Go DJ, because it has the elements of a song that a lot of people don't know nationally, but is known locally in New Orleans, that where the beat came from and the idea of Go DJ came from. So that's gonna always have a nostalgic reference for me. So I'm gonna go DJ.
Man, I'm gonna have to ask you about that one because I'm kind of curious.
It's called "Don't You Be Greedy." So if you Google "Don't You Be Greedy" by Yellow Boy, who was on Cash Money at the time, back in the early to mid '90s before he passed away, that's where that's where a lot of that "Go DJ," that's my DJ, came from that song.
Oh, okay, all right. I got educated today. Okay, all right. You got to take one quarterback to take for 5 years. Which one are you taking, Will Levis or Anthony Richardson?
Anthony Richardson. That was my number one quarterback in the draft class last year, and we saw him play better as the weeks went on. That Rams game, I always tell people that's when you know the coach is going to be a problem. Even though I picked him to win the division preseason, people thought I was crazy. It came pretty doggone close. And Anthony Richardson is going to be one of those dudes that's going to be a problem from this year and to your question for the next 5 years.
Okay. All right. Well, I tossed you a live on that one. I kind of knew that's who you probably would take. But all right. So which wide receiver is more likely to get 1,200 yards next year? That'd be Stephon Diggs or DeAndre Hopkins?
Probably Stephon Diggs. That's a good question because both have guys in place already that are really good receivers. So it's going to be hard for both to do it. But if I had to lean on who I trust C.J. Stroud more than I trust Will Levis. So I think that's what's pushing my decision towards Stephon Diggs.
All right. It's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. You're off the hot seat. We have reached the end of the show. I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for kind of dropping some of your expertise as well when it comes to sports and the draft and just giving your analysis, your expert analysis. If you can, tell everyone where they can find you on social media. Again, tell everyone where they can find your draft guide and just any things that you're working on.
Follow me on Twitter at FBallGamePlan. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/footballgameplan. Also, pick up the draft guide, footballgameplan.com/2024 draft guide, the largest draft guide in existence. Over 900 individual scouting reports. And you can find me on CBS Sports HQ and CBS Sports Network talking about the NFL draft leading up to and through April's selection process. So check it out.
And again, folks, you will not find anyone that is more prepared and it digs deeper and gives you the best analysis than Mr. Emory Hunt. Now, I know Mel Kiper's out there. I know those people out there. No. I'm trusting Emory Hunt. That's who I'm trusting. So just wanted to let everyone know that. Of course, again, thank you again, Emory, for coming on the show. For those that don't know, I'm the host. My name is Mike Patton. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at MikePatton82. That's MikePatton82. The artist formerly known as Twitter, showing honor to Prince, one of the greatest musicians of all time. And you can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And of course, you can find Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And you can also find me and the podcast on YouTube. I thank you all again for tuning in to this episode. We're out. Peace.